Well, it's a lazy Saturday afternoon and the horses have just had their lunch. Bill's trying to convince me he needs more, but he doesn't. They've had a few squabbles, but Belle's now decided she's going to have her afternoon nap. They do lead very luxurious lifestyles, these two. And he's pulling faces because he thinks that if he acts like the clown, I'll give in and go and get him some more goodies. He's a cookie monster. Anyway, today I wanted to talk about trust and connection. I think both of those issues are really big ones in the horse world, especially when it comes to project horses and brumbies. You know, one of the things that I've found, and I'm no expert, but I've been handling brumbies since I was a teenager and dealing with wild brumbies brought in from the wild. And look, it's really important to establish trust and connections if you really want to get the best out of your brumby, and that doesn't happen overnight. You know, it's one of those things that takes time. I mean, I've had Bill for 5 years now, and you know, that sort of the level of trust that we have with each other didn't come just, you know, out of nowhere. I've spent hours and hours and hours not asking anything of him, but just spending time and communing with the horses. You know, you don't have to do everything in a round pen. Just excuse me for a sec, because if I don't move, he's going to try and break in and the dog's going to keep barking. So 2 ticks. Okay, Bill's a performer, as you can see. He's trying to convince me that if he plays and acts like the clown, that I'll give in and let him into the backyard here, which is what he's really aiming for. But he's had his lunch and he's not going to eat my back lawn at the moment, but so now he's going to try and break in, and he's a bit of an expert of breaking in, and that's another one of his little brumby traits from the time he was young. Here he's tested just about every boundary we've had and tested fence lines, tested gates. He will open gates with his teeth, pull things back, test things with his hooves. Hence his hooves are always a mess because he's always stuffing them into places he shouldn't. But there you go. But anyway, back to the whole issue of trust. Trust is a really big issue if you want a safe horse. A lot of people try and push their horses through all the training processes, including the groundwork, without establishing a strong connection with them first, and also building up that element of trust with them. For a horse to work for you and to want to work for you, it's got to be a partnership. I'm not the sort of person that thinks, oh, well, it's a master-servant situation and the horse will do as I say because I've said so. I ask of Bill and I ask of Bella. If he doesn't want to work that day, then that's fine by me. I don't push him hard. If he's being mischievous and naughty for the sake of it, and he sometimes is, I might push the point in the training process and make him do the work until I'm satisfied that he is listening to what I'm asking him to do. But normally, you know, if he says no to me, I'll accept that. You know, it's no big deal. And as a result of that, I've built a really good bond with him over the years, and he's safe to be around. You know, and look, if there's one thing in this world that you need to have around horses is safety, because they're big animals, and no matter how much you love them, if you can't trust your horse, then, you know, you've got problems. And you know, it's something that I'm really strong about when it comes to horse handling. Bella, and I've said this before in other videos, when I first got Bella, she was extremely reactionary and very untrustworthy. You know, I used to go out into the paddock and I'd be doing jobs, and she would charge me. She would swing her backside round and try and double barrel me. You know, she's just not not being mean, but she just hadn't had any handling, and she was very dominant. So in her mind, she was going to try and be herd leader or the boss, and I just couldn't have that because, you know, she was risking my safety. Bill is now going to be annoying again, so I'm going to have to step back a bit and just, yeah, that's better. Anyway, you know, I had a choice of either stand up to her or run for my life. And because I had spent that time as a teenager being trained up by two very experienced people, the first person was actually my own father, and he taught me how to handle young horses, especially, you know, mischievous young horses. That was my very first. Back in those days, we used to call it breaking in, you know, or nowadays they use more fancy words like gentling. But with my learning, my father was a stickler for actually very gentle methods. And, you know, he used to say to me, you know, if you use force on a horse, they'll never love you, never respect you. So learn to work with them, Roz, and master your own emotions before you insist on mastering your horse's emotions. And so there was a lot of little wisdoms that at the time, you know, as a teen you don't really think about, but now that I'm, you know, middle-aged and heading towards old age, there's a lot of the lessons that he taught me have really come into effect. And probably the number one is building up not just a connection, but building up a trust, a two-way trust. So I have to be able to trust the horses, and the horses have to be able to trust me. And, you know, within that is common sense as well. So, you know, you've got to have common sense and not get in between them if they're having a battle. And mine often battle with each other because there is no true herd leader. They, you know, herd dynamics with my two go backwards and forwards. If I had to say who was really herd leader, it's me. Sorry, I just was interrupted then. But anyway, back to the issue of trust. So trust is a two-way street. You've got to be able to trust your horse, and your horse has to be able to trust you. And with Brumbies, that takes time because, you know, they've come out of the wild. They usually come out in traumatic sort of circumstances. Like in Bill's case, he was only a youngster when he was separated from his herd. He was put on a truck. He was hurt. You know, he had a head injury. He was obviously pretty well manhandled, and he went straight into a sales yard. And, you know, so all of his experiences were negative. And then he spent the next year, when he was rescued by an inexperienced person, he spent the next year in an abused sort of starved situation. So he had really big trust issues when I got him. And so I had a lot of work to do to overcome those trust issues. And really the only way you can do that is by showing the stability of your own character and, you know, using calm authority, not getting uptight when they're uptight. If you are finding that you are starting to get uptight when you're working with your horses, walk away. Get away from them and calm down, because horses are very perceptive, and they can feel your emotions no matter how you're trying to disguise it. So if you're feeling uptight, your horse is going to feel uptight. And so I had to really practice mastering my own emotions around him and staying calm even when he was uptight, so that what he learnt about me was that I'm the same person every day, and that regardless of how he's feeling, that he can trust me and trust that I'm never going to hurt him. And so that took time. And same with Bella. She had to learn that she didn't need to try and master me to have a safe relationship, that she didn't need to be the boss. And she still, in some ways, is a bit of a nervous Nelly, because even though she didn't come out of the wild, She'd spent virtually the first 5 years of her life living out in a mare herd and had very little social interaction with people. And and I can see why that she was sold on, because she was so reactive in the beginning and a big girl. And I remember the breeder saying to me, "You sure she's not too big for you or too much to handle?" And and the other thing with her is that they used to whisper around her, and I couldn't work out, why would you whisper around your horse? But again, it was because she was reactive and they were scared about triggering her off and having all kinds of dramas. So Bella and I had to work through all of that. And again, I just used calm authority, spent a lot of time sitting out, which I still do, with her, and showing her that she didn't need to be triggered around me, and that even if she was triggered around me, I was not going to do anything. So I spent lots of time, Bill, I'm trying to talk here, I spent lots of time just sitting there, even when she was running around like a lunatic and carrying on. I never reacted, and I still don't react. If I'm training her and she's having a hissy fit, I don't chase her around until she gets over it or do anything. I just ignore her. I go and sit in the middle of the round pen or wherever I am, and I just ignore it until she comes over to me and lets me know that she's over her hissy fit, and then we go back to normal. So, I play on my connection with her, and I also know that she trusts me and she knows my patterns of behaviour. So that's where your two-way trust factor comes in, is that you have to be stable, you have to know what you're doing, but you also have to prove to your horses that you're just as reliable as one of their other herd mates, and that you're predictable in the sense that they know how you're going to behave every day. And that's one of the things that you don't hear about in a lot of those training videos that you see online, is that there is an inordinate amount of time that you have to spend to really build that connection and that trust factor up. And sorry about this, these two are going to have a squabble. It's just, squabbling for them is a bit of an art form as well. They do actually really love each other, but squabbling is fun for them, and they've always done it. And that's life, as long as I'm not stuck in between them, which occasionally, if I'm grooming one and the other one wants to be groomed, or I'm grooming Bill and Bella wants to be loved, it can be a bit of a pain. But other than that, these two are pretty good. Anyway, I'll end it there, but I'd like to talk a bit further at some point about the whole issue of trust and connection, and doing it outside of the round pen, doing it in everyday life, and just slowly building up that trust factor to the point that when you do start training or handling your horses, that you can do it with a level of safety, because with trust comes predictability. The horses know how to predict you, and you know how to predict your horses. And you can tell when the horse is genuinely fearful or when they're being obnoxious. And I say that because Bill can be obnoxious just for the sake of it, not because he's nasty, but because he's naughty and likes to be naughty, and I've never discouraged that. And I allow him to have a big personality. That's who he is, and he's very demonstrative, so I don't worry about that either. He can do high theatrics around me, and I know he's never going to aim at me. He never has, never will. But then again, that comes from the connection and the trust factor that he and I established when I first got him. All right, like I said, I will talk about this again. I just wanted to introduce this topic to everybody.